What's my motivation in this scene?
This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production, your daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Here is your host, Mr. Steve Jones.
Hola, buenos dias.
¿Cómo están?
So let's get rolling here. Tomorrow you mentioned special guests, Neil Coulong in the NFL draft from SI.com, and Dick Girardi, my basketball compadre, but also one of the top horse racing writers in the country. Tomorrow afternoon after the show, the Kentucky Oaks, and then the first Saturday in May means the Kentucky Derby at Churchill Downs.
I love the Kentucky Derby every year. It's always a fun event to watch and enjoy, and horse racing has a special place in my heart.
Last year, Rich Strike, which was not on the field on this day a year ago, was put into the field on Friday, and in a 20-horse field, wore 21, pulled a Rosie Ruiz, jumped in at the quarter pole, and won. So Dick will run down what is a wide open 20-horse Derby field, and we'll do that tomorrow. Yesterday, we touched upon what happened with Alabama baseball and LSU. Alabama has now responded by firing baseball coach Brad Bohannon after 3 state sports books halted betting on the Alabama-LSU game. What his alleged involvement is still a mystery. Alabama trailed the game 8-1 after 7, fell short 8-6. The way I am understanding it is that we talked about why would Ohio step in? And there is actually a reason that Ohio stepped in and then led to 2 other states doing this. That is because the largest single wager was actually placed at Great America Ballpark in Cincinnati.
Wow.
And the Reds, by the way, were not playing.
So Reds fans were just real bored, didn't have anything to do.
I think there's restaurants there and things like that. But they have kiosks there. And I guess that's the way the story goes, is that this heavy money came in, I mean, like really heavy, and it was all on LSU to win, which I don't understand why that would be a surprise. LSU would have been, quote, the heavy favorite.
Yeah, they're one of the top teams in the nation. That makes sense.
So what happened is they spent it all betting on Alabama baseball games, and the bets were placed Friday at BetMGM Sportsbook at Great America Ballpark. The Reds, meanwhile, were on the road, beating the A's, I might add. Everybody does. And Alabama sophomore pitcher Luke Holman was scheduled to start Friday's game. Now, your Friday starter is your best starter normally. But according to the UA game recap, reliever Hangid Banks was told an hour before the game that he would be starting in Holman's place. They claimed that Holman was scratched after experiencing back tightness before the game. Alabama lost 8-6. But the question I know you had yesterday was about why Ohio, because the biggest bet, and I guess it was a huge one, was placed in Ohio.
That makes sense now.
At Great America Ballpark. The New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement issued an order to its sports books to stop accepting bets on Alabama baseball games, although they said that was a precaution, and they said there was no suspicious activity detected. Pennsylvania also has halted betting on Alabama baseball games, and they do play Vanderbilt today, by the way.
Another pretty darn good team.
Yeah, Vanderbilt's always good. Bohannon was hired, by the way, in June of 2017 to try and bring Alabama baseball back, and it's been mixed results. But what his role is in this, I don't know.
Clearly, there was some sort of role with him.
But they have not revealed what that role potentially is in it. But that is why it happened to be Ohio. If anybody's wondering, what the deal was with that and why he was fired, it all surrounds that. Penn State men's volleyball plays tonight. They play Hawaii, 7:30, Eagle Bank Arena down at George Mason. So we are now to that point. And Hawaii is the number 2 seed in the tournament. Number 1 seed is UCLA. Every time I turn around, I'm seeing UCLA this, UCLA that. You sure you want to invite these people in? They're pretty good at a lot of things.
Just keep them out. Why not?
They're pretty good. I got to give them credit. But, yeah, that is the deal with Penn State men's volleyball. Men's softball, I think, has their last regular season series of the season. They're playing Purdue.
Yeah, they have Purdue this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and every single game can be found on Pop 93.3.
Yes, so we'll have that for you as well. So please keep that in mind. Then there was a situation with the Yankees play-by-play announcer, Michael Kay.
What situation would this be?
Okay. So it has to do with a direct message. First of all, I am not in favor of people releasing somebody else's direct message to you. That's supposed to be a private line. But evidently some fan was able to DM him, and in doing so, he was claiming that Michael Kay was defending Brian Cashman, the Yankees general manager, on the Yankee broadcast. Okay. And by the way, he claims he didn't. But then he responded to him. You don't do that.
Just don't respond to fans. Just don't. It's not worth it.
Oh, I respond to fans, but if it's a question about like benign stuff, right? You don't respond to a fan that gets a hold of you and says, "Hey, by the way, who's out this week?" Like, no. But there's a lot to go here. Jimmy Traina, who does a good job on SI.com, is the one that put this together. And here are some of the quotes that they were able to get. Now let's start with this. I don't know how on earth the guy got a hold of his direct message. No idea. But the fan accused Michael Kay of defending Yankees GM Brian Cashman. Kay claims he did no such thing. I have no idea whether he did or not, nor do I care. And part of the reason was I think the game was on Amazon Prime.
It was Amazon Prime Wednesdays.
Yeah. So he goes about arguing with this guy on a direct message. Why? No offense, you can't pay attention to that stuff.
Do you know what I think at least this possibly happened? It's a weird situation. Is because of the verification on Twitter. That when you were verified on Twitter,
the blue check
mark, when you had it, you could no longer get DM'd by those who didn't have it, or if you did, you would not see it.
Okay.
It would go into a folder that you had to click a bunch of buttons to get to finally see it. Right. But if you were verified and you sent a message to someone else who's verified, it would pop up in their messages saying, Mike Trout DM'd me. Like I could see that. But if random fan number 76 DMs me, I'm not going to see it. But now that the verification on Twitter has drastically changed to where Michael Kay is no longer verified amongst millions of others, he's going to get every DM.
look, as Jimmy Traina points out, and it's accurate, play-by-play guys, men, women, get criticized on a daily basis. Right? They also get praised on a daily basis, too. So, Bud Tallman, who is going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this summer, when I first ascended to the football play-by-play job, and he was the one that informed me that I got the job. Okay. And in fact, the meeting took place at his house because he didn't want anybody to know, and it took 5 days before it got out. So he didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything. It took 5 days for it to get out. And we were talking about it. There's certain things we talked about, like, he wanted to make sure, how does basketball fit? I explained to him how basketball would fit. So, because they didn't want to make a change there, but, how many games might I miss? And I said, one maybe a year? Like this past season, there were 37 Penn State basketball games. I did 36. Well, one of the other elements he covered was, he says, Steve, and this guy has done it for a long time. Roger Staubach wins the Heisman Trophy, Bud Tallman. All right. OJ runs for 2,000, first time ever. Bills, Bud Tallman. All right. Penn State wins the national championship 1986. Bud Tallman. You're talking about there's a reason. And, the guy worked 7 Super Bowls, maybe more than that. Everything he's done and accomplished. So he's been around the block, and a person I'm going to listen to and strictly follow what he's talking about. And he told me straight out, he says, look, the higher you go in something, the more the critics are going to be. He says, ignore it. He says, if we have a problem with what you're doing, we'll tell you. He says, after that, he says, don't even pay attention to it. And he's right. You don't pay attention to it for two reasons. And I tell my broadcasting class this all the time. Number one, let's deal with the criticism part. What happens when you get criticized? What do you start doing besides getting mad at it? You start thinking. And anybody that knows, and I've been around here for 4 decades, they know I don't think at all. So I mean, no, but you start thinking. And when you're sitting there and thinking while trying to do something, am I doing that? Am I doing that? Am I doing that? You get all fouled up. Just do your deal. Right? There's a reason you're sitting there. Right? Number 2, let's flip it to the other side. Universal praise. Right? You start walking around going, I'm pretty good. Well, guess what? You better keep working. Because guess what? You say thank you and you move on and you keep working hard because there's a way to do the job that's best for you. I mean, everybody has their own ways of getting ready for something. There's not a universal way. But you can't pay attention to that stuff. When somebody does praise you, say thank you. It's really nice that they think that highly of your work. When you get criticized, you're like, okay, well, I got a funny feeling you can't sit here and do it. It's just a gut feeling. Now, a peer criticizes you, well, they can do the job, but that doesn't happen. But you can't be direct messaging and replying to people. Michael Kay is a great broadcaster. He's outstanding. Well, so what if he defended? Say he did defend Brian Cashman. Okay, what's wrong with that? You can have an opinion.
What's wrong with that is New York sports fans, or what's wrong with it?
Right, but you can have an opinion. It's okay. And there's maybe a better chance because of the chair that you sit in, you have a better informed opinion. Okay? Doesn't always mean it's right on or spot on, but you probably have a little more information to operate with. All right? There's always that old expression, a little information is extremely dangerous. Right? And he can go from there. I mean, if he decides not to say anything about him, that's fine. If he decides to back him up, fine. That's his opinion. He's entitled to that. But you're not going to get him to go on the air and criticize them. I mean, despite your rant in the hallway yesterday. No,
despite my crazy rants about Cashman 24/7.
No, I'm talking about this place.
Of course.
All that stuff you said, I'm sure it's just a moment of anger. No, he doesn't ever get angry, right? But it would be the equivalent of us getting on here and saying, "Well, Seven Mountains Media." No, you don't do that. You don't do that. So he's not going to do that, right?
It's crazy.
I mean, here's one for you. Delete.
Or just close out of the tab.
Right.
Just don't respond.
He doesn't.
Simple.
But he doesn't need to do that.
No, he doesn't.
He's great at what he does. Michael Kay is excellent. Right? Is he perfect? Nobody in these jobs are perfect. Jeez. I can tell you at the end of the game, I can tell you right away how many mistakes I made. I know almost all of them. Every once in a while, something will have it go, oh, did I say that? I mean, seriously, only because you're just going through it. But I can usually pick out at the end of the game like 2-3 things, like, and you just keep going. All right. Next.
Want to talk college basketball?
Well, we'll get to Hunter Dickinson next. The whirlwind is now over, and he's out of the Big Ten.
Finally.
So he had visited Georgetown, as I mentioned, Kentucky, and Maryland. He also slipped in a quick trip to Villanova, so he's down in Philly, and he then went to Kansas. So he puts out a video. I will say this. If Hunter Dickinson plays minutes in the NBA, I'll be surprised. I think his life is going to be in Europe after this. But whomever he is with has always done a good job of, quote, marketing him.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
And they pulled a video where he gets out of a car and walks into, I think it's a hotel, and goes into Salon A and B. And in Salon A and B, Bill Self is sitting there. He says, Coach, I'm going to Kansas. I'm like, I don't really care where he ended up, but I'll say this. It was a little different way of doing it. You know?
I mean, it worked. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. He explained on his Round Ball podcast this week how difficult the decision-making process had been. Well, yeah, if I've got a choice between Kentucky, Kansas, Villanova, where do I want to go?
You know what the craziest part of this whole thing is? Kansas may not be done in the portal.
Oh, no. No.
Well, the reason behind it is because there's still a casual 5-star forward out there.
I know.
Mackenzie Mbako, who just undeclared from Duke.
Yeah.
Is 6'8", power forward, and is now still in the portal. And apparently he's visiting Kansas like right now.
Yeah. And there's also one from Kentucky that put his name in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
The Kansas City Chiefs lost both their starting tackles from this past season. Andrew Wiley, who went to the Washington, and Orlando Brown, who went to Cincinnati. So they have turned to be their new left tackle, former Nittany Lion Donovan Smith, who, of course, was protecting Tom Brady's back the last few years.
Did it pretty darn well. As a Saints fan watching him, it was never fun going up against him.
This past season, he struggled with too many penalties, and that's something he'll have to overcome. But now he gets to protect Patrick Mahomes. Now let's keep it on the college level for a moment. Brett Yormark, who is the commissioner of the Big 12, and he is somebody that has ideas. I'm not going to say, I would call him a forward thinker, but I'll just say he has ideas. He did a great job of jumping the line and getting a new contract for the Big 12 at about $31.6 million a school. So, it's not more than the ACC, but the Pac-12 was up next, and Yormark got the job done with both ESPN and with Fox. Now, it should be pointed out, there will be games, football and basketball, on ESPN Plus from the Big 12. So it's not one of those where everything is linear for them. But he still did it. He got it done. He is now proposing the possibility of the Big 12 playing football and basketball games in Mexico.
It's an interesting proposition.
So, on the surface, the idea is to, quote, grow the game. Okay? My question is, grow the game where? Football, American football, is such a specialized sport that, yeah, they'll play some in Japan. Yeah, they'll play some in Mexico. They're playing some in Europe.
To Germany, France.
Right. But it hasn't taken off. I mean, it's not like there's not interest. Obviously, I have experience with one game overseas, and that's the game in Ireland in 2014. And it was fun talking to some of the fans. And there was a group I'll never forget. Penn State was practicing at College at Dublin. And I went up into the stands, and there was these 5 students sitting there, and they were College of Dublin students. It turned out 3 were from Ireland and 2 were from Scotland. And I said, hey, great to see you guys. I say, you guys big American football fans? Well, first of all, I asked them what sports do they really like, and they liked Gaelic football, soccer, not so much hurling. Okay, hurling is a big sport in Ireland. And he said, well, what about American football? He said, oh, we love American football. I said, oh, great. I said, who's your favorite team? And they all said, oh, the Steelers. Now, keep in mind, Dan Rooney was the ambassador to Ireland at the time. And Mr. Rooney, in fact, was the one who presented the trophy to James Franklin when Penn State won the game. Oh, we love the Steelers. I said, oh, yeah. I said, do you ever hear of Jack Ham? This was one of the greatest responses. It was one of the kids. It was one of the kids from Scotland. Oh, Jack Ham. He says, we love Jack Ham. I said, oh, really? You want to meet him? They went, what? I said, he's standing right there. So I did my specialty. I took lots of pictures for them.
Mm-hmm. You're the photographer for the day.
I am the unofficial photographer. All right. But they loved it. And there were people sitting in the stands watching practice. But the logistics to do it were really difficult. And especially this was James' first game at Penn State. So he wasn't the one that set it up. Penn State got there 4 days before the game. And it's not just that you get there 4 days before the game. That's fine. But you have to build the schedule in such a way, which this schedule was not built, where you have a week off before you play another game. And Penn State didn't have that. They had to come back and play right away. But you're talking about, the game was at, I think it was 8:30 in the morning Eastern time. So game's over, and we immediately flew back that afternoon from Dublin and then got into Pittsburgh that night. And then, and there's a pattern to get ready for the next game. And so these guys had to scramble a bit to get into their pattern so they could practice Sunday, then get Monday off, and then get ready for the next game of the season. Now, unfortunately, Penn State played well and won the next game as well. In fact, they won the first 4 games under James. But there are a lot of logistics to go with it. And it's more than just people realize. Central Florida was the home team for the game. That meant that Central Florida had to send over the goalposts. I mean, these are all things you take for granted. They had to send over the goalposts, the yard markers, the first down chains. They had a boatload of equipment as the home team that they had to send over. So by doing this, there are a lot of logistics. Penn State did not have to give up a home game to do this. Nor would I ever recommend Penn State giving up a home game to do any of this.
Oh, heck no.
If you're in the Big 12, no offense, but if you're Kansas, then maybe you do consider giving up a home game to do it. I know they're better, but maybe you do if you get certain financial guarantees. But that's my issue with it. I would never give up a home game. I mean, I know Nebraska played Northwestern last year in Dublin. And I want to say it was Northwestern's home game.
It was.
Right? Well, Northwestern's not going to draw. Unfortunately for them, that's just the way it's just the way of the world. But I would never expect Nebraska to give up a home game to do it. That's 90,000 fans. I would never expect Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State to do it. To give up a home game to do it. And I understand what your mark is trying to do, but somebody would need to explain to me in a meeting the value of the Mexico City and or Mexican market for Big 12 football.
Yeah, I think at least for them, it's because of the location.
Well, yeah,
near Texas
obviously bordering Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, I've noticed on the news the Texas borders Mexico.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think the only reason college football, like at least the Big 12, trying to get down there would have to be a championship game or something. It's got to be a big game to start.
Yeah, but why would you want to play your championship game there? Why would you want to
try and draw
inconvenience your fans where, look, okay, I want to go see it, but I got to get a passport. I got to, there's a lot of things you have to do.
I think just the spectacle of it. I think sometimes we forget there's a bit of a spectacle aspect to sports. I mean, you see it a lot right now that all of these games are played in certain stadiums in certain cities, and they kind of go all out. Like, look at the Super Bowl every year.
Well, I just did the Rose Bowl.
Yeah,
Tournament of Roses parade.
It's a huge event. It's a huge thing. I know currently in the soccer world, they're looking at bringing games like regular season games over here to America, and people are like, why? Don't do that. Like, no team's going to want to try and bring games over here. Right. So why do that for the Big 12? The only reason you should do it is if it's a championship game and there is no home game, that is no home team that loses out on it. That would be my only reasoning.
Because college basketball can do this.
They can do it.
Battle for Atlantis. I've done 2 games in Cancun.
The ACC plays in the Barclays Center, but Madison Square Garden.
But I'm talking about going overseas. I mean, Michigan State played UConn, I think, in Germany to open a season.
Yeah, a few teams have played in Germany. A bunch have played in England.
But they're non-conference games.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball, because of the schedule where you have 11 non-conference games. Some conferences it's 13, but the Big Ten and the ACC are both at 11 non-conference games. So you have flexibility to, let's go to the Battle of Atlantis. Okay, let's go to Cancun. Let's, I know it's not a foreign trip, but for example, let's go to Maui, right? Which is, out of the way. Maybe the United States, but like that's,
it's been done.
So, and I think this year in London, Kentucky played, which Big Ten team was it? I'm trying to think if they played.
I believe it was Michigan.
Michigan. Yes, it was Michigan. I know it was Michigan.
The Basketball Hall of Fame London Showcase.
Yeah. And so they played in London. That stuff I can see. Because you can now work your schedule around in such a way, because it's a non-conference schedule, to do that. And every team is afforded, by the way, every 4 years, a preseason foreign tour trip. Penn State, I think, is scheduled for one in August this year. And I'll talk to Mike, see if I think Mike's still doing it.
Yeah,
I'm
I know.
98% sure he will. I think it's, why not? Might as well learn about your team and go from
probably.
there.
I know Syracuse has gone to France in the past few years. Yeah, It's normal.
So now, culturally for the players, I mean, it can be great. You go someplace, you see someplace you've never seen before. You can do all that stuff. But I'm not quite sure what he's trying to accomplish with this, because you're talking about regular season football games. Basketball, I could see like, hey, let's do like an opening festival down in Mexico City, Acapulco, Cancun, someplace, right? And do that where it has that kind of atmosphere to it. A regular season college football game, I think, becomes a very difficult proposition. And I'd like to, in a room, that would be what I ask. What are we trying to accomplish with this, and how much do you feel it would grow our fan base as a conference? And you can't just do it once. You'd have to do it repeatedly to somehow get yourself ingrained down there. But what does it mean? Because we have seen, for example, the Chiefs were scheduled to play the Rams in Mexico City, and then there was a problem with the field. And then they ended up playing the game in the Coliseum. But in baseball, we just saw the Giants and the Padres play in Mexico City, that wild 16-11 game. Okay, baseball has great reach in Mexico and obviously in Central America. No getting around it. Great reach. So I can see why you'd want to do that. And I believe the Padres have played a 3-game series years ago in Monterrey. Have done that. So I can understand that.
Baseball makes sense. Basketball, I know the NBA is considered a team in Mexico City, which is a discussion for another day. But that makes sense again, though.
It makes sense to a point. The elevation is the part that would bother me. Because I want to say Mexico City is at least...
It's a little bit higher than Denver.
Yeah, it's 7,800 feet. I think it's over 7,000 feet, which is 2,000 feet higher than Denver. Denver's 5,280. I think the only place in this country that plays at that kind of elevation is Wyoming.
Yeah.
Because I believe Laramie is 7,200 feet.
But even that, at least to an extent, makes sense because, again, the NBA has one of those where Mexico plays in the World Cup all the time, and Mexican basketball is an actual league. I believe DeMarcus Cousins or one of those random centers played there for a while. Yeah. So it's a legitimate league. So the NBA and the MLB going there. That makes sense.
But you also have 82 games to play around with if you're the NBA. College football, you have 12 games to play around with, of which some schools it's 6 home games, and in Penn State's case, it's always 7. Those 7 home games here are gold financially. So you're not going to give that up. Now, has Penn State ever given up in basketball a home game? Yeah, they played in the Madison Square Garden Classic against Michigan, and it was Penn State's home game when they went to the Garden. And I remember asking Jim Delaney at the time, I said, Penn State going to get this back? He says, oh, yeah, they'll get it back. He'll even out. Right? Personally, I like Jim, so, but Jim, they never got it back. And you could choose to do like the Palestra game. Penn State's played Michigan State, Iowa, Purdue. I know there's a lot of thought that maybe Michigan's a possibility coming up. We'll see. And that's been great for Penn State. But you're playing that in your own state, and you're also playing it when the students aren't on campus. And that'll be the other element for doing this with the Big 12. Are you going to do some of this stuff when the students aren't on campus? A Thanksgiving break, a Christmas break. Now I can see the basketball part makes total sense to me. Football part is the one I'd be struggling with because that's where you're getting you'd have to get a pretty good guarantee from whomever the promoter is in Mexico that's putting the game on. But I'm not sure how it grows your game and your fan base. That I would need a lot more research for that.
Yeah. The college versus professional level of trying to go internationally is just very different. They have a very different pull because professional-wise, you can always play it off as, oh, this is a pro sports league from America coming here.
You're right.
You can do that. That's pretty straightforward and easy. But saying, oh, this is a semi-professional, amateur, collegiate team coming here, it doesn't have the same draw. Like if you were to pick between Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson coming to play here versus, respectfully, Sean Clifford and insert random Iowa quarterback from the past few years, wouldn't have the same draw.
How can you be so disparaging? I don't understand.
What would you classify Sean Clifford as good as Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson? Is that a no comment answer? No comment. We'll go with that.
I think common sense tells you what the deal is. But they're also bigger names because they are pro quarterbacks. You know, for some reason, Spencer Petras from Iowa does not rise to that.
Doesn't have the same draw as newly signed Lamar Jackson. Not the same.
By the way, Spencer Petras, his injury is bad enough where he's not going to play this season. So that's why they brought in Cade McNamara. But I just think, it's an interesting proposal because I always feel proposals should be talked about. And don't hesitate to throw out a proposal so that you can work out the pros and cons of it. Because you may come up with a proposal that may have some roadblocks initially, but turns out to be a great idea. I'm always willing to listen to that. Always. But those would be my initial questions sitting in the room. Okay, now explain to me, what in the end do we get out of this? What are you looking to do with it? What is the long-term answers in your mind that you're trying to find out by playing a game in Mexico? A college game, not a pro game, college game. See, in the pros, now they have the 17-game schedule. Oh, well, now you're not really sacrificing. One team that's playing the ninth home game is the one that's hosting the game, and it's a throwaway. Or if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, so...
Don't come at Tony Khan like that.
They play, once a year?
Once a year, Tony and Shad Khan bring the Jaguars over to London to play. But they have a deal because they're part owners of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is...
You ever hear about it? I had Scott Radisick on the show, and then we were talking afterward. And Populous is the one that designed and, of course, they ended up building that stadium in Tottenham. And I guess the pitch, which is grass, they hit a button, and it splits into three and goes away, and then, goes away, and then they have lamps on it. And the NFL field then rises, and I think the NFL field's artificial.
It's an artificial turf,
It rises up, and they put it in place. Wow.
It's an interchangeable field. It is currently the only one that exists, but I believe Real Madrid in Spain are doing the same thing right now because their stadium's under renovation, and they're probably going to be the next place that the NFL tries to get to, because Madrid is huge city, and Real Madrid's stadium, the Bernabeu, is gigantic.
And when the Barcelona Dragons were playing in the World League of American Football, they actually had a draw. Jack Bicknell, the former Boston College coach, was their coach back then with Barcelona. So now that allows us to transition to the stadium, because Penn State is going to have that discussion, and it's today with the Board of Trustees about Beaver Stadium. People will look at the price tag, and obviously it's a big number. If you build new, that number is going to be 2.5 times.
It's going to be astronomical.
Right. This was first really brought up 6 years ago. So let's be straightforward with people about numbers. Because what they do have to do is they have to get architectural renderings and things like that done out of this. That's part of what's coming out of this meeting, is they have to get elements like that. You want to see in concrete terms what you're going to be doing here, right? And how they really propose to do it. Beaver Stadium, there is a budget for maintenance on it every year. And they put a lot of money into the maintenance of it. That doesn't mean it's enough. It's a 62-year-old facility. Well, at least some parts of it are 62.
Yeah.
Like the south end zone's 21, 22 years old. 21 and a half years old. The upper deck, the cantilever deck, is 32 years old, something like that, 31 years old. But you need to do this now, because you can't keep kicking the can down the road. If this had gone forward with everything 6 years ago, it would be done by now, and in the end, it would have been cheaper because it's just the way the world of inflation goes. And
costs get higher for everything.
That's with every building. That's why every time we talk about why do Olympic venues lose money? Because they go in with a bid, they get the bid, the whole thing, and then when they finally build it 7 years later, everything costs exponentially more than when they put the bid in. Right? That's just the way of the world. So you want to do this now. You don't want to wait till 2030 to do it. You want to do this now. You don't want to wait till 2028 to do it. You want to get this done because this is an important building on this campus.
It's a moneymaker.
We talk about, but also for the campus itself. Remember, sports is not the centerpiece of a university, even remotely. But it's the front porch. It's not the house, but it's the front porch.
Yeah.
All right? Hey, what's out there every week in the fall on TV?
College football.
Yep. And Penn State football's out there every week. Right? The College of Engineering is doing great work every day. The College of Communications is doing great work every day, with the exception of one class.
Oof. What class might that be?
Well, somehow continue to fool them.
If your class, if you have a teacher named Jeeves Sones,
College of Agriculture, Smeal College of Business, great. I mean, I can go through the whole list of them. Great, incredible. But what puts the name Penn State out there? Now, those are all reputations that are developed, but I'm talking national into your living room. And it's Penn State football. It's the front porch. It's not the house. But how many times you go by and go, God, that front house looks really great. What a beautiful place. I like to go, I'm thinking about buying a house. I like to at least go in and take a look at it. Well, that's what Alabama football, Georgia football, Penn State, Ohio State, they at least get the name out there. And this stadium is a critical building moving forward. And it's more than just, and part of this proposal is about the winterization of the stadium as well, because look, college football playoff, I mean, the first ones will be December 2021. Right? As a longtime resident, I can tell you there are moments where it gets chilly on those days here. And that's when, moving forward, those games are going to take place. Right? Moving forward, the playoff expansion, that looks like that is the window they want to play those games. And is there a possibility, whether it's 12 or maybe eventually 16, that Penn State hosts a game?
Of course.
Yeah, it's sitting right there. But number one, you want it to be a great experience for the fans. That's one, which means wider concourses, which means bathrooms, amenities for the fan, right? Above all, right? The ability just to get people in and out, right? Of a 107,000 seat stadium. That's a big part of it. And you want to make sure it is structurally tremendous, right? You don't have any, where your maintenance costs are a lot on an older building. So they're going to have to do all this. And again, by doing it now and getting the wheels kicked in now, 10 years from now, it's going to look like a bargain. Because that's just the way inflation operates. 10 years from now, the number that looks so big on this particular day is going to look like, oh, that's pretty good. Kind of got away with that one, didn't we? That worked out pretty well. I think 10 years from now, that's what people will say. We got a beautiful stadium. I love it, especially the west side and everything they did with it. And you know what? Boy, I wonder how much this would cost if they did it today. In 2033, I think people will be saying that. And it's the amenities for the fans that are going to be so important. That's why you talk about the bathrooms, you talk about concessions, you talk about wider concourses, in and out access. and so forth to go with the seats that everybody sees. The luxury suite and media box that everybody would see, which will be part of it. But it's much more than just seats and loge boxes. It's much more than that. And I know they're talking about it today. I mean, they're talking about a lot. The second floor lash, which, that has to be done. But that's been on the books for a while. The money's been raised and so forth. That's been on the books. The new one that was thrown in there that I really liked was the bubble. The practice bubble that was put in. And there's certain places that have practice bubbles, like, the Giants do, for example. That they have a practice bubble. But Rutgers does, Iowa does. I mean, the different places I've gone that have a bubble. Well, this bubble would not be for football. This bubble would be for other sports. That way it would ease the pressure on Haluba Hall, where it is used all the time. Everybody, come on in. We're going to hit baseballs at 6 a.m. Okay. All right, here comes lacrosse. We need to come in here and do it. Okay, great. We need soccer in here. Okay, great. Oh, by the way, we're going to practice for football too. This would ease the pressure on that building as well. I mean, these are all forward-thinking ideas on facilities and soccer, and what they want to do with the soccer field, Jeffrey Field, and the facilities they need. I mean, look, I'll give you an example of locker rooms and bathrooms. Okay, last year at the field at Tofttrees, we always have a coach on from another sport besides football or basketball. And then this particular day, I had Jeff Cook on the show. And Jeff Cook is one of the great guys out there. And, by the way, has become a heck of a golfer. I can attest to it. I need to borrow his swing.
But you still aren't as great as you hope to be yet.
No, what bothers me is I've fallen back. I was 3 straight years, I was an 11.
Oh.
Played really well, and now I can't do anything. I'm going to have to get I had an injury to my right hand. My right hand's my lead hand because I'm left-handed, and I haven't been the same since. But that's irrelevant. Jeff Cook comes on the show, and he says, I had to rush over here from practice. I had to change my shirt in the car. Okay, the coach of the soccer team at Penn State should not have to change his shirt in the car. He should be able to go back in the locker room, change his shirt, get in the car, and drive over. Right? And they need that. So I remember now, long before Medler Field was built, Penn State would play its baseball games at Beaver Field. Beaver Field is where the practice soccer fields are now. So when you come in on the west side, you see the press box, and you see those practice soccer fields leading into Jeffrey Field. That's where Beaver Field, the baseball field, used to be. Well, players would have to go into Beaver Stadium, and that's what they would use as the locker room. They didn't have anything out there for that. Well, Jeffrey Field, they got to change before they come over. It's like, they need basics. So these are all the things they're talking about moving forward. And for anybody who sits there and thinks, well, the TV money will take care of a lot of, no, the TV money is going to take care of other things. These are items that are long-term projects that will help the various programs along the way, and the time to do it is now. And the reason the time to do it is now is that if you keep waiting, it's going to cost exponentially more down the road. And that it's as simple as that. What would it take today? Let's just take a brand new stadium. All right. It cost, Yankee Stadium opened in 2009?
Something like that. Yeah, it was 09, 010.
Yeah, 09. In fact, they won the World Series the first year in there, right? That would be 09. All right. Yankee Stadium cost $1.5 billion to build. Okay? How much would Yankee Stadium cost today to build?
Somewhere probably close to 3, maybe.
I mean, look at Jerry World. Jerry World, I want to say is $1.2 billion when he built it.
It was 1.3 billion. So 1.3 to build in Dallas, but that's for a domed stadium.
Yeah, retractable. Yeah. Yeah.
I want you to guess how much you think SoFi Stadium cost in Inglewood.
SoFi.
SoFi.
I want to say the cost of the stadium, or is it the cost of the complex?
Just the stadium.
$2.8 billion. I would say.
Make that number more like $4 billion. For the full complex, it was $6 billion, but for the stadium itself, it was just over $4 billion.
And by the way, that's not. It's covered. It's an interesting covering.
It's a weird covering.
What it is, it's open on the sides, and there's a covering, and the sunlight can get through it. I remember looking at it when I was in Los Angeles. I thought, this is really different.
Yeah, they knew no fans would be there. They didn't need the seats for them.
Right. So I was like, okay. But yeah, AT&T Stadium. So let's see. Built in what? 2009, right?
Yeah.
And
the gigantic jumbotron in the center and all of that.
So it's $1.3 billion. All right?
Mm-hmm.
In today's number, it would be $1.8 billion.
Woof.
So you're talking about $500 million more in a span of 14 years, because it opened May of this month. Mm-hmm. So 14 years and $500 million more. This is why you have to get projects like these. You just can't keep kicking the can down the road. You've got to be able to draw the line in the sand and say, look, in the end, as much as it costs now and as much as you have to fight back to get the money back for it, right? 10 years from now, it will have paid for itself.
Yeah.
And it'll be 10 years from now, outside of maintenance, one less thing to worry about.
There should be hopefully less issues, should be less of this, less of that. It should be just a, in general, better stadium.
Right. And that's better stadium for everybody, players, coaches, but above all, a better experience for the fans. And Yankee Stadium cost, the Bronx, Whew. Wow.
Yeah. Yankee Stadium was not cheap at all.
No.
Cool 2.3.
Yeah. In the end, $2.3 billion. It was I think it's the seventh most expensive. In 2009, it was the first year of it. $2.3 billion. Populous, by the way, did it. It's beautiful. I mean, I think was it the day before the game? They worked out in the stadium, and then they gave us a tour of everything. All right.
You know what's crazy, by the way? Just a month earlier, Citi Field opened. Do you know how much Citi Field cost?
I'm going to say 1.2.
Inflated to today's cost, it would have been 1.1.
Okay.
Back then, it was $900 million.
All right.
Yeah. Not terrible. Not bad at all.
No, but that's how much all of this cost. So,
get it done sooner rather than later.
Right, that's
Don't wait.
That's my point. So what's $2.3 billion 2009
probably close to 3
to today. Okay. And again, that was $2.3 billion. Value $2,009 today. Blah 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 blah. Go ahead. What's the value of $1?
If I'm guessing, that's $2.8 billion. That'll be my guess number.
Man, you're good. $2,813,000,000.
Bingo.
$836.31.
So when the price is right. Amazing.
Not only that, you came in under.
I know. That's why.
Well done.
Can't go over.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the late Bob Barker would have been proud of you.
Mm-hmm. Watched a few game shows in my lifetime.
Yeah. But that's $500 million more in 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
a lot of money.
But I'm saying that's why you don't wait. At some point, you've got to say, it's line in the sand time, it's go time.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
And that's what Pat Kraft is doing today. It's go time. And you've waited long enough. I remember when Ohio State did a lot of work on Ohio Stadium, the Horseshoe. And they did a great job with it. And I'm going back 20 years. And they put something like $180 million into it. I mean, that'd be the same number today, but they put it in then. Now when I was there in February, they were putting a new scoreboard in, things like that. I saw that they were doing that at the stadium. But I mean, you'd love to pay $178 million now.
Oh my gosh, that's the what? That's 3 years of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, but this is the way it is, and that's why when you look at it and say, "Oh, they'll see the numbers," and I don't blame you for looking at the numbers, and going, "Oh man," because I think we've seen like $700 million total. Mm-hmm. It's all said and done.
It's not terrible.
Okay, but the bottom line is that $700 million is going to be about $1.2 billion in 10 years. Well, would you rather pay $700 now and avoid $1.2 billion in 10 years because you kicked the can down the road? You got to do something at some point.
You do. And before we end off, so I know we've got a minute or so left here. Are you a fan of kickball by chance?
When I was on the playground, I
in the playground.
Kickball. It was all right.
Yeah. Well, I know we discussed my team yesterday, the New York Knicks. We led off with the Knicks yesterday.
Yes.
But I want to end off with my team today. Oh. That's okay with you?
Of course.
There is a small kickball team in upstate New York called Z89. Okay. I'm currently wearing the hoodie of them. Okay. They also happen to be the college radio station.
What town?
Syracuse, New York.
Okay.
Also happen to be the college radio station I worked at. And they are officially now 6 straight winners of the Watson Cup. I wanted to give them a big shout out.
Excuse me, the prestigious
Watson Cup. They won 6 straight. I was a part of 3 of them. I would like that known. I captained 2 of those teams. So it's a prestigious time to be in upstate New York.
If you don't mind, since we're on camera.
Go for it.
What do you think? It's my shout out.
Not bad.
Way to go.
Thank you.
Congratulations on another Watson Cup.
It's a beautiful Watson Cup victory.
My understanding is that, based on my sources, that it is awesome to win the Watson Cup, but this year's edition was not as good as it was a few years ago because of leadership.
I would have to agree with that. And it was beautiful. It's a beautiful victory, especially whenever you get to win a game.
Hey, to all you up there that won the Watson Cup, congratulations. You're carrying on a legacy. That's 6 consecutive. That is better than North Carolina women's soccer.
Oof.
Which won 4 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
way back when.
MJ only won 3 in a row twice. He didn't win 6 straight.
So he won 6 total, but there was a gap.
Yeah.
Right? There's no gap with the Z89 team.
Different legacy.
There's no gap.
There's no gap.
I love it. Yeah. Congrats to them. All right. Dick Girardi and the Kentucky Derby tomorrow. I was talking to Jerry Valeri, who refers to himself in the station as Nick the Greek. I'm like, oh, wait. Okay. We'll talk about the Derby and the Oaks tomorrow with him and Neil Coulong on the Steelers draft. That's tomorrow. Thanks for joining us on the home of the Z89 Watson Cup kickball champions, Seven Mountains Media.
And thanks for tuning in to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production. Check